Happy New Year.
Guess who's back?
After like 8 million years.
I know, it feels like 8 million years.
Well, it's just, you know, family and adjusting and...
trips and me getting sick, which is
and
not
me
fun.
getting sick. So it's, do not recommend sleeping through the New Year's Day.
Not fun being
Unless
sick.
you like sleeping.
But we are back now, and
We are.
to kick things off for our regular video content, we are going to share a what we read. We are
That's
now at
right.
episode 10 of this season, which is pretty cool, I think. And
Yeah, fun fact when we were figuring out how, why not season 2, episode 1, and I thought, yeah, we're gonna make BEA our bookish new year.
isn't that a fun concept?
That's me. That's totally just my fault, like completely. But
anyway, so we are going to be talking about all the books that we read, I think around mid-December. Actually, not even mid-December. It was like
early December.
Early December onwards, because we never really got a chance
today.
to talk about them.
Yeah.
So without further ado, here we go.
Right. So one of the first things that I read this year, so I'm going backwards, I think, is
Time travel.
I know. It's The Wicked and the Divine. I've always been meaning to read this story. We met the authors at Comic-Con this year. Super fun, because the story is every 90 years a pantheon of 12 gods are reincarnated into human form, and they have 2 years before they die, all of them, and the cycle gets restarted 90 years later. And at the center of this is a young girl who gets to witness some of the shenanigans that happen around one particular god, Lucifer, who looks like David Bowie in the flesh. And it's, how do I even begin to describe this series? It's just wicked fun. It's like a younger American Gods kind of deal, right? So the writing's younger. It's British, so
It's British.
yeah.
We do like British things.
Gaiman, you know what I'm saying? So for those who appreciate that kind of retelling and that kind of characterization, where you're taking like gods and putting them in our world and getting them mixed up in all of the fun, messy human things that we go through. This is your book.
Did you just read volume 1 or volume 1 and 2?
1 and 2, as you can see flashed below. But it's just so yummy, good storytelling. So I highly recommend it for any Neil Gaiman fans. It's a great follow-up to if you're hungry for more of that stuff. That's not necessarily Gaiman, but also just as well written.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna section this portion of our What We Read video as my Tamara Pierce section, because I read quite a few Tamara Pierce things
So did I.
since the last time. Although you probably have already seen us talking about them, I'm going to link to all of the Reading Tamara Pierce videos that pertain to the books I'm about to mention. But first of all, on a long plane ride to the Philippines, I binge read Battle Magic. This book is all about Briar, Rosethorn, and Evie as they experience the war in Yanjing, which is something that is alluded to in another book, which we'll talk about shortly. But this book is so good. It starts off a bit slow, but that's because it sets the scene perfectly for like the character relationships, the setting, and it builds and crescendos into such a really emotionally driven story that had me like flailing in my tiny little airplane seat, which was like, it was intense, it was brutal, it was so well written, and I absolutely loved it. It was by far one of my favorite reads of 2017, which if you're interested in finding out more about that, there's also a video for that as well, just say. But yes, so that's the first one.
It's peak Tamara Pierce, so.
And then, oh, the next book that I read is actually, we only have it in ebook form, and that's Melting Stones, and this is one of Evie's adventures. She accompanies Rosethorn to, what is it?
The Battle Islands.
The Battle Islands. And they're trying to investigate why it seems like all the plants are dying and why magic is slowly sleeping out, and they obviously find out what the cause is. And it's a really cute little adventure. I think it's interesting reading it after reading Battle Magic, since technically Melting Stones was published first. It's definitely got a different tone.
Yeah.
Still has high stakes, of course, and still has characters that are really incredible and easy to love. But I didn't quite love it as much as Battle Magic. I think it was because like it didn't quite have the same level of emotional impact for me personally. I did enjoy hanging out with Evie though, so that was really fun. And the last Tamara Pierce book that I'm mentioning is, of course, The Will of the Empress. This is Macky's favorite in this particular world.
Still is.
It is the story of how our 4 circle mages, Sandri, Briar, Triss, and Daja, are finally reunited after years apart, and it both talks about their growing pains as they try to relearn how to be friends after being apart for so long and having all of these personal secrets and experiences that they don't really want to talk about or share with the others. And it also deals with Sandry returning to her mother's native homeland, Namorn, in order to, you know, manage her state, meet her cousin who happens to be the Empress of Namorn, and it's all about this Empress's bid to try and get Sandry and all her friends to stay in Namorn and what the four of them do about it. And it is so good. It's funny to me because, like, reading it now, I read it once before and this is the second time I read it. I realized how much court intrigue is in it. Court intrigue is in it, and it's really funny to me because Macky doesn't normally like court intrigue, but apparently he likes it here. It's a really good book. It's a very great way to end this series, all in all. Like, I think it just culminates so beautifully at the end. So yeah, would highly recommend. And again, I'm linking to all of our Reading Tamara Pierce videos for these books because that way you can see everything we thought of them.
All the way through. Alrighty, next thing that I just recently read is I got an arc for Potion Masters. It should be out right about now. And this is Potion Masters Book 1, The Eternity Elixir by Frank L. Cole. Middle grade to up the wazoo. So I say that because, you know, there's a certain level of absurdity and simplicity that I just love in middle grade, where it's just, okay, I guess you just accept that grown-ups could be that dumb and kids could be that lucky. And true enough, this is really fun. It's cute lore in a world where, you know, when I saw Potion Masters, I thought of Snape. And yeah, that's what they are. He comes from a long line of elixirists. That's what they're called.
Wow, that sounds
I know, so fancy, right? It's all like alchemists, they're elixirists, and so they're able to brew the coolest, craziest potions that affect it's basically their magic. It's alchemy that just, you know, you randomly add like anaconda fangs and just I know, just random.
I actually know a YA version of this book,
right? But it's set because he's like 12 years old. I mean, the opening scene to this book.
So what's the major plot then? Like, aside from them being elixirists?
Okay, the major plot is while his mother is away, when he discovers that his mom's actually like a super cool elite elixirist, right? When his mother's away, he gets like a package in the mail called the Eternity Elixir, right? Okay. Not unknowingly sent by his aunt because some evil folks are going to use that to destabilize the elixirist world, and he's the only, and they send it to him. And it's up to him now to kind of hold the fort down until help actually comes. So it actually, the whole time I was thinking Home Alone. I don't know why, maybe it was the holidays.
It kind of sounds like Home Alone.
Because it's just some random kid just mixing potions and brewing them and just tossing them at the most unwitting villains to get with it. And so it does read like a summer kids blockbuster.
Disney Channel?
Very Disney Channel. No, actually no, this is Nickelodeon. This is totally, like, you know, the shenanigans are Nick level. Fair. So I recommend it for anyone who wants like a nice, again, middle grade summer blockbuster. Very cool. Looking forward to book 2.
The next section of my What We Read portion is going to be rereads. So when I was in the Philippines, this is not the copy that I actually reread, but when I was in the Philippines, I just felt like rereading one of my historical romances, and that one was On the Way to the Wedding by Julia Quinn. This is I think it's the 7th or 8th book in the Bridgerton series. I can't remember. It's the last one anyway, and it's about Gregory Bridgerton, who is the youngest son, and he fancies himself in love with this girl, but this girl has so many, like, she's one of those pretty girls, so she has a lot of like people interested in her, and so this girl's best friend is obviously the key to this girl's heart, so she decides that she wants to help Gregory convince her friend that, you know, he's the one for her and all of that. But of course, because this is a love story, guess who ends up falling in love? Best friend Lucy and Gregory. And it's just, I've said this before about the Bridgerton series, and I'll say it again now. It's kind of like reading a romantic comedy but set in the Regency era. So it's fun, it's light, it's enjoyable. It tends to get a little dramatic here and there, but it's just really fun. And I love the Bridgerton family a lot. One of my favorite things about the series is that Julia Quinn has done such an incredible job with these characters, making them so lovable and so memorable, and I thoroughly enjoyed rereading this one, even though I knew exactly what was going to happen. And my most recent read, which is also a reread, I only read this one last year, but I had to reread it when I got my finished copy.
Is that good?
The Crewprints by Holly Black, which is the series starter for her series, The Folk of the Air. And it is so, so good. It's about a girl named Jude who is stolen away from her human home at the age of 7 with her sisters and ends up living in the world of fairy. And as a teen, she wants to establish herself in that world and make it so that she has a place in it. And this is her journey as she tries to figure out a way to make that happen and also deal with all the court intrigue that is surrounding the coronation of a new fairy king. And holy crap, this book is so good. It's just so fun because it's brutal and it doesn't hold back anything when it comes to like all the terrible stuff that happens in it, which I think is great. When it comes to fae, I don't know. Personally, I think evil fae are hilariously fun to read about, even though it's also terrifying. And I love the characters. This time around, I really, really love Jude even more because she's so clever and she's so brave and she's stubborn as hell even when she's doing something that's not necessarily smart. But it's so good. The world is so vivid. The characters are so like alive in my mind and I just thoroughly enjoyed it and I am dying to read the sequel. Why is 2019 so far away?
Yeah.
So sad.
Okay, this next book is a fun book. It's called Priella, and I even got a handwritten letter from Jocelyn Carney, who had written it saying thank you for reviewing the book.
I read his review for this book, by the way. I'll link it down below. It's actually really cool sounding.
Yes, it is. Like I said, and again, I'll get the one thing that I had, you know, felt that could be constructive about this book out of the way, and it feels like a YA. Sorry, it feels like a middle grade book dressed up in YA skin. And that's the one thing I'll complain about, because the problems are complex and the characters are deep and they have literally real world issues, and they resolve quite simplistically because of the magic that's sort of involved in here around our main character Priella, of course. But outside of that, it's just there's nothing like it. Literally nothing like it.
Well, what's it about, first of all?
Yeah.
So that, you know, we know what's going on.
It's a story about a girl named Priella who eventually discovers that there's something very magical and otherworldly about her. And she discovers that she is, this is the only spoiler I'll give, she discovers that she is a muse. She comes from a little family line of muses. We're talking like Greek muses. Yeah. Ah. We're talking Greek muses here. And she has to go to, you know, she has to connect to that part of her and go into the muse community. And inspire humans. That's totally new. But she can't sing, she can't dance, she can't do she like sucks at all kinds of art, but she is a math whiz. And so that's her in, you know, it's like whatever that is. And so in that world she gets to, you know, make life practical and whatever. The author wanted to kind of write a book that would inspire young girls especially to get into not just the arts but the sciences as well. And so
That's a great idea.
I kind of love main character Math Girl Muse. She's awesome. But again, just the storytelling, like if you're gonna go YA, just go full on YA, make it absurd and simple. If you're gonna go middle grade, go absurd and simple, and that's awesome. But if you're gonna go YA, then you're gonna want something kind of more angsty and intense, I suppose, right? Yeah. And whatever. So, but that's fine because there's no book other than, you know, out there like it. So it can be its own thing. And it was really interesting reading this book. So here it is.
Okay, the next section is my TBR Pile read section, aka the Picky Pledge section. If you don't know what that is, I will link to it down below. It's a project, a casual project that my friend Hannah of So Obsessed With and I do every single year in a bid to read more of our own books. So first, I want to talk about my second Agatha Christie book. I read Murder on the Orient Express and I really enjoyed it. It is a little bit, in terms of characterization, maybe it's not the greatest in the world, but at least they're all distinct enough to be memorable. But in terms of the mystery itself, I enjoyed it tremendously. I thought it was so much fun. It was really entertaining, and I loved, again, that it was one of those mysteries where it was a closed circuit one, where there's one setting, there's a limit to the number of characters, and it was so clever. Like, I was not quite expecting how it ended, and I thought that was really great. So I'm glad I finally read that. And then I also read a book called These Is My Words, The Diary of Sarah Agnes Prine, I want to say, 1881 to 1901 by Nancy E. Turner. As the title suggests, it's basically like a chronicle of the life of Sarah Agnes Prine from those years. And she is a teenager going into motherhood during that time period. And it starts off pretty slow, and I think you just have to get used to the narrative style, which is diary entries, like it says. But once you get really hooked on Sarah as a character and on her story. Oh my goodness, it was impossible to put it down. I think it has the Little House vibes that Hannah promised me. Like, it's an adult version of it because there's a lot of terrible things that go on here. But it's, again, a story of like pioneer life and people just trying to make their own way at a time and place where that's very difficult, especially for a woman. And I just really enjoyed it. Like, I was happy to have finally read it because I really loved Sarah as a character. I also kind of enjoyed the romance. There was a part where I got really frustrated with it, but I also really enjoyed it. So yeah, no spoilers there. But it was really good. I'm glad I finally read it. All right.
Awesome. Okay. In preparation for, because Alexa got in the mail, Alexa got the second book of the Jumbies series in the mail, so I had no idea what the heck that was. That was a book 2, so I
didn't even know it was a book 2 actually.
Right?
Until someone pointed it out.
So it was a book.
One of you pointed it out actually.
I got myself a copy of book 1 from the library, and it's the Jumbies, right? The second book is the Jumbies,
Rise of the Jumbies.
So in preparation for that, I read this, and you know what? It's really fun. It's Caribbean.
What's the story?
It's Caribbean.
Is it magic?
Folk tales. It's definitely magic. It's set on an island, centering around a little girl who had lost her mom a long time ago, and out of nowhere, you know, events lead up one to another where their whole island is besieged by the Jumbies. Now, the Jumbies are pretty much like
Jumbies?
The Jumbies are pretty much like Caribbean folktale boogeyman. So again, it's a very, very deeply rooted in Caribbean culture. So I really liked it. It was a very good, again, middle grade book. It's centered around a young girl who decides to be strong and face the very thing that is both her past, present, and future. And her connection to the Jumbies is there, and it's real, and it's crazy, and she's literally the only one that can you know, swing the door the other way. So that was a fun read. I totally recommend it. Can't wait to read Jumbies Part 2. Rise of the Jumbies. Right, we'll see how the events of the first book have transpired into the future, where suddenly the Jumbies are on the rise again. So we'll see how that goes.
And the last section for me is going to be my review book section, and there are only 2 books here. First, we have Love, Life, and the List by Casey West, which is by far my favorite of her contemporary YA stories. It's about a girl named Abby Turner who has 2 problems. She is in love with her best friend Cooper, who does not return her feelings, and she also gets rejected from being in an art show because her art pieces don't have enough heart. So during the course of a summer, Abby decides to find a way to, I don't know, inspire herself to add heart to her work, and so she makes this list of things that she can do to grow herself as a person, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think the romance is actually secondary to what I feel is more of the main plot, which is Abby working her way through this list and realizing things about herself. And I think like it just appeals to the sense in me where I also love the idea of that, like making a whole bucket list that, you know, will encourage you to do things you've never done, or to experience things or experience emotions that you've never felt. And it's just so wonderfully done, and it's so adorable, and I absolutely loved it. Would highly recommend it. It only came out in December, so you better get your hands on a copy if you haven't already. And speaking of cute contemporaries, Meetcute, Some People Are Destined to Meet, and this is an anthology of stories by a variety of YA authors. Jennifer L. Armentrout, Danielle Clayton, Katie Cotugno, Jocelyn Davis, Huntley Fitzpatrick, Nina LaCour, Emery Lord, Catherine McGee, Cass Morgan, Julie Murphy, Meredith Russo, Sarah Shepard, Nicola Yoon, and Ibi Zoboy. And it is, as the title suggests, a bunch of short stories that are about different meet-cutes between different characters, and it is wonderful. This is probably my favorite YA anthology of short stories because it's just so adorable. First of all, the concept of a meet-cute alone is already cute. It's that moment where 2 characters who may fall in love or may become friends or whatever it is meet for the first time. And I used to write a lot of meet-cutes too, so I think that's part of the reason it appealed to me. But I also love that each author had their own take on what this meant for the characters, and every story was different, every setting was different. It was just so good. My personal favorites are Jen Armentrout's story and Emery Lord's story. Those were really great. I also think Nina LaCour's story was really fun. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It came out on January 2nd. Definitely grab a copy if you haven't already. I promise it is adorable and perfect during this winter season if you need something that will make you feel warm and fuzzy on the inside.
Okay, now the funnest books that I've read so far are the first 4 books of the Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians series. starting with Alcatraz vs. the Evil Librarians, the Scrivener's Bones, the Knights of Crystallia, and the Shattered Lens. I got this little beauty from Tor, and you might have seen it from a couple of months ago. As a part of our haul, and in preparation for this book 5, right, which is the Dark Talent, I read all of these 4 books that you can see displayed here on the screen, and they have been the craziest, funnest middle grade ride you have ever seen, pretty much almost ever. I mean, we're talking, it's got literally everything that you can think of that you're gonna want in a middle grade adventure. You've got your boy who discovers that he's connected to this larger piece of the world that nobody ever knew was there but is actually there, and discovers a power in itself. Interesting thing about Brandon Sanderson's lore for this thing was here Alcatraz has 2 powers. One, he is an oculator, which we find out that in this hidden world where we've got the Librarians who have controlled all of us, and we've got the free kingdoms that actually exist apparently in the Pacific Ocean, because the Librarians control all the information in the hush lands. That's where we live, quote unquote. And the free kingdoms, the ones who are not under Librarian rule, don't exist. As far as the Librarians are concerned, controlling all of us little sheeple. And Alcatraz has this power called, in this other world, he's called an oculator, where he's able to manipulate the forces of nature through specific kinds of glass. So he literally wears different kinds of glasses, and stuff happens. Like you have you have glasses that control wind, you have glasses that control gravity, glasses that control the way you look. Everything is all about glass in this entire world. And Brandon Sanderson has a history of taking random objects that we know and making them this really cool power lore thing. So that was fun. But do you think that's good? That's really good? It gets even better because it's the most obscure, weird, like if the Animaniacs decided to narrate a book, it would probably be this language, and it's that kind of humor, and it's that kind of absurd, obscure punditry that is peppered throughout this entire book, all of these books. And you know what? The books just get sillier and sillier and sillier, while the stakes get higher, higher, higher. The story gets better and better, better. I don't know how he does it. Footnotes apparently play a huge, annoying part of this entire thing.
Footnotes in books.
I don't know how you'll feel about these, but you're gonna find them in book 5. I'm halfway through. I highly recommend it to anybody and everybody that I know and love. I think it's time for Alcatraz to kind of take to the forefront and join the ranks of Percy and Harry and all of these guys, right? Because it's just so good.
Cool. So there you have it, guys. Those are all the books that we've read since the last time we shared a What We Read video. I'll share that link down below. Have you read any of the books that we've read? We would love to hear your thoughts. I especially would love to hear your thoughts if you've read the Crewprints, because I love that book so much. Little maintenance. We know we are way behind on the Reading Time Repair series. It's still happening. That's not a problem. All of those videos will still go up. It's just that the schedule is completely different from what it used to be. It's partly because I got sick and I ruined the schedule because I couldn't read anything while I was sick, so there's that. And also because it's been a busy time and we haven't had time to film properly a discussion on all those books. But it will happen, don't worry about it. We will update you guys in that next video what the new schedule is gonna be, so be excited about that. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and we would love it if you subscribe to our channel. We would also love it if you guys recommend other booktube channels that you guys enjoy, because it's always fun to find new booktube people to watch and befriend. So yeah, so there, till our next video, bye!